JD here, and as you can see, we are back once again on F1 2020, and I have to say, playing this game recently, I have just enjoyed it so much. I really hope that we do have some classic cars on F1 23. I know it's going to be released very soon on the 16th of June, if I'm not mistaken. But really what I'm hoping for in this game is just the fundamentals to be right, and if they did have things such as classic cars, features that we actually enjoyed in the past, then I just hope we have just a much more solid game. But until then, I'll probably be spending quite a bit of my time on this game and the likes of iRacing, because these are probably my two favourite racing games right now. And today we've decided to go in the Ferrari F2004 at Bahrain, probably the most competitive, popular track. This is always a track that people tend to do the most. And last time we did it at Silverstone, managed to take the world record there. This time we're at this one, and we're just going to see how we do. So as usual, starting off with the stock setup, and this is probably one of my favourite cars that I have ever driven on an F1 game, just because it really punishes you if you overuse the input. So if you just turn in too much, it's going to over-rotate the car. Too aggressive on the throttle, it's either going to bog it down or you will lose it. The brakes are very snatchy as well. It's a incredibly demanding car to drive and just very satisfying. And that's why I've said, as always, the handling doesn't need to be necessarily realistic. It just needs to be rewarding, but I also think more importantly, consistent as well at the same time. And if we have that for F1 23, and they do focus a bit more on the online stability, a bit more immersion in career mode, a lot less game bugs and crashes like we've had on previous games, then it doesn't need to be out of this world to be a good experience. So I really do hope Codemasters take a bit of more note from the community. I'm certainly looking forward to the new game, as always each year, because it is going to be something new, and let's hope it'll be for the best. But you can see here now, world record was a 128.8, and when you go from a stock to a fixed setup in this car, or sorry, from a fixed setup to an actual custom setup, typically I find 1.5 to 2 seconds. So really the goal here was to aim for a low 30 or mid to high 30. If I could achieve that, as you can see, we just do a 30.7 there, but I actually felt like there was a bit more time in the tank. So this is actually my fastest lap I did with the stock setup, and every time I do a time trial, whether it's in classic cars or the actual cars themselves, it sounds silly, but I always like to start with the stock, just get myself used to the track, the feeling of the car, and set as fast time as I possibly can without any custom setup, because that is just going to give you a lot of confidence once you do put on the setup. And when you do these laps, I always like to try and complete them as much as possible. So even if I do in a validation in sector 1, sector 2, or make a bit of a mistake on one particular corner, I like to just try and keep going to really try and build that muscle memory as much as I can. Unless I've done a spin in sector 1, if it's just a little mistake where I'm still on the track and I've maybe lost only half a second or so, then I will just keep on going. And that's something that has worked really well for me in the past. Not necessarily on my raw pace, but I think that has translated or transferred over to my race pace consistency. At the end of the day, it's about really not the fastest laps you do, but the fastest average laps you could do. So that's definitely a top tip and recommendation if you're looking to build your consistency. But you can see here now, we're about 3 tenths up. Lost a bit of time in the previous couple of corners, so I knew there was still some on the table. Going to this last corner, a very difficult braking zone in this car. So easy to over-rotate the car and snatch a brake. And coming across the line, it's going to be just shy of 3 tenths. But it's a 30.2, which, as you saw from my Silverstone video, we gained 1.5 to 2 seconds with an actual setup. And that puts me 51st on the leaderboard. 28.801 is the fastest time so far. Someone noticed this. See, Jan Otmir did a 29.0, but Again, I think he did a little challenge series where he tried to set a world record in 1 lap. So I think that was his first or second lap that he did that, which is pretty mental. But he was using a custom setup as well. So now we're actually going to put on a setup and let's see what the difference is. And usually it is pretty substantial from the stock. And already straight away you can see the car just wants to over-rotate into the corner. So you just have to be incredibly smooth but delicate. If you are too aggressive with your inputs in this car, it is just going to spit you out and it is not really going to do what you want it to do. So really have to kind of brake and just really gently ease the car into these corners. And you can see not as big of improvement as I was hoping for. So we're definitely faster in a straight line with the wings that we're running. But going to here again, you can see always wanting to over-rotate and losing a bit of time on the exit. But go gain it back with that straight line speed. Do we gain some time here? Yes, you do. So you can see that delta is going up quite a bit. But we've still got a fair bit of time to find. And see, gain the time into the apex. But on the exit, we do lose out just a little bit. Going to let's see what it does. Is the car going to over-rotate? Yeah, you can see almost wanting to do a 180 spin right now. You can see we're losing a lot of time. So I was really hoping that I would be well over half a second up at this point. Apart from that little mistake in the left-hander, the lap doesn't actually feel too bad so far. So it's in the middle of the corner. We gain the speed, but go over here again, you see the car wants to almost get away from you. So you really want to be doing that flat out, but it's got so much downforce and too much oversteer that almost a result of actually too much grip in this car. Coming into this last corner, let's see what we can do now. Managing to do that fairly well. So again, yeah, maybe a little bit more work to do than expected. So that's a 29.8. So we've still got 1 second to find. Felt like I could definitely gain about half a second or so, but you know, we're going to continue again. And I like to show these raw laps because it does give you a bit of a true perspective of what progression looks like. So I do think there's a lot of people who look at a time trial leaderboard and are often quite intimidated by the lap times some of the drivers have set. Something to remember is that a lot of these drivers, that ultimately that is just their best. What is this their best lap? They could have done 100 or 1,000 laps. It's going to be the one that sticks. And I don't always believe just because you're fastest in time trial means that you are a better driver overall. Some people are just very good at putting together a lap where all the limits are applied. But then when you do that in a race situation, quite often you can't drive at 100%. You have to drive 90, 95%. And often a lot of people just don't really understand or have the ability to kind of discipline themselves whilst they drive. So again, that's why I think someone like myself might not be the fastest on raw pace in the qualifying, but typically over the course of a league racing season or many league racing seasons I've done, it's just about the consistency and being able to do it when it counts. You can see here, we're about half a second up. Made a big mistake going into that last corner. So getting a bit more confidence with the car now. And that was a 29.4 with still plenty of time to find. And the longer you really spend on the time trial or doing anything, if you're doing something in one session or one sitting, it can be quite easy to kind of hit a bit of a brick wall. So something I always recommend is to spend no longer than 60 minutes if you're doing a time trial or if you're really trying to practice any skill, to be honest, because I think over 60 minutes, that's where not just the physical, but really the mental fatigue starts to kick in. And whenever I do these world record attempts, which I will be doing in F123 as well, I never really spend over 40 to 60 minutes at a time. If I can't get the time I achieve, then I usually step away for a few hours or so, come back a bit later, or maybe just come back the next day where my muscle memory is going to be a little bit more refreshed rather than stuck in the same driving patterns that I'm in. But you can see here now, we managed to get it down to 29.1, so we're actually quite close. So we very quickly got up to speed, but the longer you spend, the closer to your potential for that day at least you will get. And you can see 1.5 temps up, so this is actually a fairly good lap so far, but going a little bit deeper, gaining the time back on the exit, so losing a little bit overall going to this double left hand, a really difficult corner, but managing to do that really well. And you can see just shy of 2 tenths, so we gained a little bit of time going through here. Into his left-hander, going uphill, one of my favourite corners on the circuit. Don't want to be running on this curb on the exit, so try and keep it as tight as you possibly can. Did that okay. Want to be doing this completely flat out, but barely moving the steering wheel, so just trying to avoid that over-rotation as much as you can. Into this right-hander, it's really a third or fourth, but you really want a 3.5 gear going through there, because either one doesn't seem sufficient enough. Going through into this last corner, third gear, and managing to do that fairly well. So about 2 and a bit tenths up. Where is this going to put us? It's going to put us on a 28.9, which is still just under 2 tenths away from the world record. But it's really at this point, like I said, where I kind of got stuck in my own muscle memory. Because for myself, I feel like I get to limits quite quickly and often need to step away or have a bit of a refresh. And you can see at this point, we're just making very small mistakes here. Just very, very difficult to kind of just break out of the muscle memory or the driving style that you're in at this moment in time. You can see just pushing the limits just a little bit too much here, so invalidation. But you can see we are actually just going to continue that, but then we lose the car. And yeah, if we lose it like that, then we might as well just stop. But coming through into this last corner again, this seemed to be a pretty difficult corner for myself, the one I was really struggling with the most, and you'll be able to see coming into this one that we did it okay this time. So I lost a little bit of time on the middle of the corner and the exit, but we're actually going to be half a tenth up, so that's a 28.9. And now we're just going to watch the next couple of laps to see if we can make any more improvements. You can see in that first sector compared to Nico, we're losing almost 2 tenths, so that's a lot of time to find, and 2 tenths will put me down to a low 28.7. So I knew there was actually quite a bit more time in this lap as well. You can see go through it and just big really on the throttle. Car wants to over rotate, and that lap is over. But I just come into this last corner, see half a tenth up, go for it, missing that apex once again, but gaining the time on the exit. So I knew that there was a lot of time to find going into this last sector. So we're going to stay on board for this lap, and then we'll see what we can do. So coming here, we've done a 28.6 first sector now. So again, that has really made area focus, actually going in deep into here, but actually getting a better exit as a result of that. And we're almost a tenth up on our time, and we know we've got a lot of time to find in this last sector. So go for it here, just trying to barely turn the wheel as much as we possibly can and get this semi-decent exit. That's a 28.6. That's definitely a lot better first sector, but still, again, a bit of time to find into this right-hander. A very difficult corner. Want to avoid this curb on the exit and getting a really, really good exit. So about a tenth up. Going to this double left-hander, so using all of the track. Could have used a bit more on that right-hand side. You can see that has punished us for the exit. So making the line tighter than it needed to be. Going to this left-hander, using all the track again. Trying to use all the track at the exit, but running maybe a fraction too wide. You can see we're losing that time, so that advantage is now starting to diminish. Going to here, you want to be a bit tighter on this apex, and you can see on the exit, using a fraction of time, but we know going for this last corner that there is still some time to find. So coming to here, let's see if we could do this well. Managed to do it quite well. Look at the time we found that, but again on the exit, wrestling with the car, but we gained about half a tenth, so still a little bit more time to find it. Got across the line. It's at 28.802, 1,000th away, I think, from the world record. So we knew we had a bit of time to find. But now, this is a very, very nice lap. So coming onto here, onto the start-finish line, let's talk through the lap itself. So going down the home straight, knowing that we can gain a bit of time in this first sector, so braking just really as the curb starts. Managing to hook the apex this time, losing a little bit out here, but are we going to get a bit more on the exit? The answer is yes. You can see gaining a pretty good amount of time, so about a quarter of a tenth, and now coming through here, make sure we use all the track again. So basically just after 100 meter board, missed the apex a little bit, but again really focusing on the exit, but we actually lost out on the exits. That is not as good first sector as I would have liked, but really doing this right, left, very, very nicely. And then coming into this right-hander, missing that apex, but again, gotta really get a good exit And then this time, try to use all of the track coming to here. So really going all the way up to that right-hand curb. And you can see missing the apex again. But even though I've missed the apex, it just gives me a much better launch on the exit of here. So still quite a bit of time to find in this lap. Going through here just after the 100-meter board. And how do we do this one? We don't do it too badly at all. So actually gaining quite a bit of time. Going through this one completely flat out, barely turning the steering wheel as we're going through this one. Hooking the apex much better we did on the previous lap. You can see over a tenth up now, but now we're just losing out a fraction of the exit. But we know going through the last corner, there is still a little bit of time to find. So using all the track here, and you can see losing a bit of time, but gaining a little bit back on the exit. 700ths of a second up and going across the line. That's going to be a 28.723, which was enough for the world record, and actually harder than expected. I was expecting maybe to get that quite quickly, considering I got to a 28.9 very rapidly. It took me quite a while to get, and you can see I think we've done 18 completed laps, so that is quite a bit of time to spend on that, but we did manage to get it in the end, and that was the fastest time. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy this. Please let me know what track you'd like me to do next and what content you would actually like me to really focus on for F1 23. Thank you so much for the support of the channel, and I'll be catching you very soon. Peace.